This is episode 5 of Road Noise, Life 1 Mile at a Time. Hello once again, I'm Michael Blackston, your host for Road Noise, Life 1 Mile at a Time, an audio journal podcast that I deliver while on the road driving from place to place all over the Southeast. What you're about to hear was recorded in July, I believe on the 17th. And although I could have just let this one go and recorded something more recent, I had already had to re-record this one because when I recorded this the first time, something happened to the audio. I plugged something in the wrong way, and it just didn't take. After I listened to it, I realized the audio was very bad. So I re-recorded it, and because I went to that trouble, I don't want you to miss out on it. And it's some good information that I think might be a little bit of wisdom for you as well. Maybe you'll get something out of it. So, without further ado, from July 17th, 2015, enjoy. Welcome back to another episode of Road Noise. I'm your host, Michael Blackston, and this time I'm heading back from Cookeville, Tennessee, and I just came through Atlanta. I'm on 85 North, heading home. I'm about probably an hour and a half from the house, maybe a little less than that, but I'd say probably about an hour and a half from the house. And I felt like recording another podcast. I'm going to talk about 3 things, and I've titled them as follows. Number 1, I'm going to talk about keep the disasters. How my little girl, my little 2.5-year-old daughter, just wanted to help, just wanted to do what Daddy was doing, and now, after the reaction I had, I'm bummed, and I'm going to tell you about that and a lesson that I've learned from that. Also, I've got another story I want to tell you called It's Only Money, and hopefully there's some wisdom there that I can share from some stuff I've learned just in the past 24 hours about that. And finally, I don't know, it's been a good day, but I've run into some people that you would categorize as a-holes. I don't like to use even that kind of amended language, though, but that's kind of coarse. So I've decided to title that point in the episode, Stop Being an Anal Crevice. So, keep the disasters. As an artist, I have so much going on in my mind, and I'm trying to prioritize and put things in order. And one of the things that I'm wanting to do is I'm wanting to get a good gallery of finished artwork images that I can use to sell the original works, put them in juried art shows, and also, though, to make prints of and sell the prints, because I am an artist who believes that if I'm going to do the art, I want others to see it, to appreciate it, and I want to make some money off of it. Another reason for wanting to do that, aside from just the aspect of making a little money off of it, serves as a little bit of validation for your skill, that people would want your work. The other side of the coin is what I do doing etching on tombstones for people. It's starting to take a toll on my hand. A few years back, I damaged a nerve in my thumb by overdoing it on one trip, and I have never recovered from that. And it seems like every trip it gets a little bit worse and a little bit worse, and I have to deal with a little more discomfort. I'm quite a ways away from not being able to use my hand, so I don't think that's going to be a problem, and I'm taking precautions now and taking measures to, when I'm not etching, keep it still and rehab it and stuff like that. But the truth of the matter is, as I get older, it's going to get harder for me to recuperate from the muscle and nerve exhaustion in my thumb. And I'm just trying to be ahead of the game and think ahead of the time when I finally have to lay down my machine from the etching and just paint or do something else. And I really don't want to do something else. I want to do artwork or voice art, something with either performance or speaking or my hands. And so I'm trying to make or take precautions and take measures now for the future so that I can have something to go on. If something ever happens to my hand, I have a way to create some income based on images that I've already done. So I'm going ahead and doing some artwork. Well, I'm trying to prioritize that and put that up at the top now and start getting some finished artwork, because I am one of those artists who has a hard time finishing something. Part of the reason is because there's a bright, new, shiny idea always on the horizon, always in the back of my mind, in the idea pool, and I have to let those little fishes swim around. And yes, I know the word is fish, not fishes. But I have to let them swim around in the idea pool and just let them stay there instead of flopping around on the shore and driving me crazy, and take them out as priority calls for it. But the other side of the coin, as far as being an artist and not finishing anything, is I never think it's finished. I'm never happy with my work, and it's never something that I want to show anybody else. Well, I don't want to say never, because I do have some stuff, but I usually have to be goaded into it by friends and family, and I'm trying to learn to appreciate my own work. And I've started doing that, and last week, maybe it might have been 2 weeks from now, going on 2 weeks from now, I had an inspiration, and I decided that I was going to go forth with it and start it. I don't like, or in the past, I haven't liked working with chalk pastels. I don't like the way the chalk residue feels on my hands. I've never liked that type of a feel. But for some reason, I felt moved to work with chalk on brown paper. You know, the brown paper you can get in rolls. It's pretty much the same paper that they make paper grocery bags out of, but it just comes in a big roll, and I have some of that. And I decided to tape up a big section of it all the way across my drafting table and do a large chalk rendering of a bulldog with his hand on a football. I'm a Georgia Bulldog fan, and although this was not a Georgia Bulldog officially, it was an English Bulldog with his hand on a football, and it was going to have a red collar, so it was going to kind of have a Georgia connotation to it. It meant something to me, and I was inspired. And I started that morning, and I went, and it just... If you're an artist, you probably had that piece of work that just... The inspiration came, and you started, and it's almost like you weren't there anymore, but something else was. You just started working, and it happened. It flowed out of you, and that's, to me, pure art, and I was so happy with it. I was loving the way that it was coming out. I did have my own critiques. I will always have my own critiques of my own artwork, but I was loving the way that it was coming out. And so I took an early picture and put it on Facebook and put it on the My Everything Arts group on Facebook that I moderate and that I am the administrator of, and said, hey, I'm starting to do this, and this is what it looks like so far, and I got a ways to go, but I'm very proud of it. And I started getting people commenting on it, and a million likes, it seemed like, and it just was going great. So I kept going. A little bit later, it was much further ahead than I would have ever dreamed it would be in one day. And I was really starting to feel proud of a work that I had done for the first time in a long time. While I had some critiques about it, as I always will, like I said, I was genuinely proud of it. I couldn't quit looking at it. It's just the inspiration was building in me, and I was so happy with it. But alas, the night was at an end, and it was time to stop for the day and pick up on it the next day, or whenever I got a chance to go in. I had taken another Facebook or another digital image of it and put it on Facebook to show people the progress, and it was just getting a lot of kudos. Michael, that looks great. I want a copy of that. I want a print of that when I'm done. You know, it was everything you want to hear as an artist. And so I left everything out for the next morning. But I forgot that I have a 2.5-year-old. And I didn't put it away. I didn't roll it up. I didn't at least cover it up. And I left not only the artwork out, but I also left the chalk out to where little 2.5-year-old fingers could get her hands on it. And she's just to the age now where you need to watch her carefully. I mean, she's 2.5 years old. She's going to get into stuff, but you can take your eyes off her for just a second if you want to finish a conversation. As long as, I know she's in that room over there. She's fine, because my studio happens to also be where her toy box is. It hasn't been a problem before, but I had a lapse of judgment, and I let her go play in that room, and I took my eyes off her for just a few minutes. Just a few seconds, really. Normally, when she goes in there to play with her toys, you can leave her. She makes noise. She talks to herself. She does things a 2.5-year-old will do, and it's just adorable, and it just makes your heart melt, and you're happy, and life is great, but it was silent. And as my wife and I were talking, and I realized the silence was deafening, and I said, Merida is not making any noise. Where is she? And it hit me all of a sudden what she had to be doing. And I said, oh no. And I ran into the room, and sure enough, she was happily... Actually, she wasn't currently drawing on it, but she already had done the damage. But she had dropped the little container that had all of my chalk pastels in it, and she was cleaning them up. And I said, what are you doing? And she said, I'm cleaning them up, Daddy. And I looked, and my bulldog had chalk streaks and scribbles and the artwork of a 2-year-old all over it. It was not fixable. It was not retrievable. I couldn't save the artwork. And I got angry. Not at Merida. I have to say, I was not angry at Merida, because I knew immediately she saw something pretty. She saw something fun. She saw something she wanted to do. She wanted to draw on Daddy's drawing. She didn't know not to. So I wasn't mad at her. I was mad at the situation, and I was angry with myself for being so careless, because I know I have a 2.5-year-old in the house. I can't leave a 2.5-year-old alone with my artwork, especially when my studio is in the same room with her toy box. So I got angry, and my wife came waltzing in there. She didn't run because she was tentative. She could hear that I was angry. I wasn't yelling. I don't recall that I was yelling, and I didn't yell at Merida at all. I took the chalks from her calmly, but I was just the comments I was making. Kayla could understand that I was really upset, and she was trying to calm me down, and the more she tried to calm me down, the less I wanted to hear it. I told her she didn't understand. She said, it's just a drawing. You can do it again. That's not what an artist wants to hear when something that has inspired them in a way that they have not been inspired in a very, very long time is suddenly taken away from them. If you're an artist, you understand where I'm coming from. At that moment, I did not want to hear it's just a drawing. You can redo it, because as far as I was concerned, I might not be able to redo it. The inspiration might not come in the same way again. I don't want to redo those same strokes. If you're not an artist, you'll never understand that. But if you're an artist, I don't want to redo the same stroke. To me, part of the beauty of creating a work of art is that every single stroke of my brush, or every single blend of the chalk, of the colors of the chalk, is an individual, unique strategy of art. And to have to redo it, to me, I didn't see how that was going to happen. And Kayla and I, of course, we don't go to bed angry, but up until bedtime, we were not getting along very well because I was just upset. The title of this little portion of this episode of the podcast is called Keep the Disasters, because what I did next is what I regret. As Kayla and I were arguing, and as I was trying to make her understand that you don't just redo it. I'm not a copying machine. Yes, I have the skill to redo it, but doing a piece of artwork is not as mechanical as just hitting the copy button again and spitting out another one. And I was trying to make her understand that, and I didn't feel like I was getting it through to her, and I wanted to make a point of how serious it was to me, and I ripped the piece of artwork off of the table. It was taped down on all four sides so it wouldn't curl or anything, and I just ripped it in 2 or 3 pieces, crumpled it, and threw it in the trash. A few days later, and by the way, I put on Facebook later, well, guess I'll have to start from scratch and blah, blah, blah. But by the time I had put that on Facebook, I was okay. You know, I had gotten over the worst of it. A good friend of mine, Danielle, made a comment and said, "Oh, I'm sorry, Michael, I hate that. It was beautiful," or whatever she said. She said, "Don't throw it away, keep it." And it hit me when I read that. Oh my God, what have I done? That piece of artwork at that moment was ruined at the moment that I realized it, but upon further thought, it was made more beautiful by the hand of my daughter, and I can never get it back because I threw it away. In a fit of anger, I threw it away when I could have carefully taken it and said, yes, this piece of art cannot be put into a frame and sold in a retail environment or to an art dealer or an art collector. But what I could have done was carefully rolled it, or even folded it, more likely rolled it, and put it in a tube or something and stored it away so that when my little girl is 18 years old, I can take it out and show her the time she helped Daddy do his chalk drawing. I wish I'd kept it so bad. Every time I think on it, it just grinds in my gut because I think how precious those strokes would be to me even now. But imagine years later, maybe if I rolled it out on the night of a wedding or something like that and looked at it. Just those memories. It's important to keep memories. So I just want to urge you to keep the disasters. Think before you act. I hope that I'll have the mindset and the wisdom to think before I act next time something like that happens. And there will be times. I have an 11-year-old son and a 2.5-year-old daughter. I got a lot of fathering to do. And I know there will be more of those moments. And I hope I have the wisdom to hold on to the disasters. So if I have imparted any wisdom to you in this episode, let that be something that you take away. Hold on to those memories, because at the moment it may feel right to just trash it, to make a point, to stomp your feet, to throw a tantrum, to rip it up. But give it a little bit, and I think you'll realize that those are the most precious things. And I wish that I could have it back, and I don't. I'll redo that drawing. I've been told by several people they wanted a copy of it anyway. They wanted a print, and it did inspire some ideas for future business products and stuff. So I'm going to be doing it again. But that one with the additions by my 2.5-year-old, it's laying in a landfill somewhere. It's unfortunate. The next thing I want to tell you is all about last night. I titled this one, It's Only Money. And I titled it that way because I got a little bit disappointed last night. No, I got a lot disappointed last night. In a previous episode, I mentioned that I was on the way to Cookeville, Tennessee, and I was thinking about going to see a movie. Well, I did. I ended up going to see a movie, but I didn't know what I wanted to see. But I was very careful to go see movies that I wouldn't be too ashamed if Jesus was sitting there beside me, or if he came back and I was at that movie. I'm a devout Christian, and I try to pay attention, and I don't, I'm an adult. I go see movies, I'll admit, that probably I shouldn't. Not a bunch of them. I don't go see anything that celebrates a sinful lifestyle or a sinful existence or anything. We're all sinners. I understand that. I get that. I know we are, but we are also called to repentance. And so for me as a Christian, me personally, I don't want to go see a movie that celebrates it overtly. I've never seen The Hangover, and it's because I don't believe in getting drunk. You may, and if that's the case, that's you. That's fine. That's between you and God, not me and you. But me personally, I don't like to go see things that celebrate that stuff. Well, the only thing on that was on last night at the time I got to the movie theater was the Vacation movie. And I liked the Vacation movies when I was a kid. I know the first one was a little rough, and the second one, I don't remember a lot about it because I didn't really care too much for it, but I'm told it was a little rough. And then, of course, everybody watches Christmas Vacation every Christmas, so the Vacation movies are part of my childhood, and I wanted to see this new incarnation of it, and I haven't yet because it's not something I would take my entire family to. And so it's kind of saving it for one of those when I just felt like going and sitting in a dark movie theater with a huge tub of buttery popcorn and a Coke the size of a water tower. And I did. I went to see the Vacation movie. It's amazing to me the content that they are putting just in previews now. You know, it used to be they'd save the really rough stuff for the movie, and they could get you through the preview without it being too awful bad. And I do know that this was an adult movie I was going to see, so the previews in front of this movie were going to be more along the adult lines, and that's fine. I understood that. I was going in, but a couple of the previews for movies that were coming out, just in the previews, the things they were saying and the things they were doing, it just made me sad for the human race. I'm just going to be honest with you. Just made me sad that people actually enjoy that type of entertainment. But again, it's me. That's fine. I sat through the previews, and the movie started. The movie, first of all, I found to be, as far as a review, I didn't see the whole thing. I only saw about 5 to 10 minutes of it. I don't even think I got 10 minutes into it. I think it was more along the ballpark of about 5. It was written badly, I should say. The script itself and the acting and everything was so forced, and it was almost as if they were begging you to laugh at them. Please laugh at this. Don't you think this is funny? It just was so forced. Comedy is supposed to be natural. A good comedian is funny because it's ridiculous and natural at the same time. This was so forced, it was sad. The script was bad. And then the content and the language used by and around kids from the very start angered me. That's just all there was to it. It angered me. And there have been times that I've gone to see movies that I felt like, as a Christian, I felt like the Holy Spirit was telling me, okay, Michael, you spent your money, you got your popcorn, you got your Coke, which is really the main thing you were really worried about in seeing this. Otherwise, you'd have just rented a DVD or bought a DVD at Walmart in the $5 bin. I want you out of here because this is not something that you need to be taking in. Not that it was going to make me turn me around and mess with my Christianity or anything like that, but I didn't feel like God wanted me there. And I walked out of movies like that in the past, and I walked out of that one. 5 minutes into it, I spent $10 on that ticket. 5 minutes into the movie, I was out of there. And I had gotten there extremely early. I had luckily gotten most of my popcorn that I wanted eaten, because what happened was the dashboard is set to Eastern time, but where I was in Cookeville, Tennessee, it was Central time. I'd gone over, and they're an hour behind me. So I was going to a 7:30 movie, and my dashboard said 7:30. I was getting right there, right on time. But when I got in there, it was only 6:30. I had an hour to wait before the movie started. And so I sat on a bench outside the auditorium and just drank my Coke and watched some episode of some TV show on Netflix and waited for the movie to start, eating my popcorn. So most of the popcorn was eaten and half of the Coke was drunk before I was able to go into the auditorium. So I didn't lose money on the popcorn. I was able to enjoy most of that and didn't have to take it with me. I just threw it out. But I was bummed because I'd spent all that money, $27 for one person to go see a movie. $10 on the ticket, $17 for a large popcorn and a large Coke. That's a lot of money. But I knew going in that I was going to spend that kind of money. And I knew going in that I was taking a risk going to see a movie that was probably going to have some stuff in there that I'm not very comfortable with. I just didn't realize it would be so bad that I would leave that early. And I got kind of bummed, and I called my wife and said, this is ridiculous. I should have known better. And I felt bad that I had gone in from the start. But I felt like I had learned a lesson. But I really felt bad that I had spent that kind of money for what I felt like was nothing. We're not rich, and we're not in a financial situation where I can really afford to waste nearly $30 on a 5-minute movie. If you'd have told me that, okay, you're going to get popcorn and Coke and a movie ticket, but now the movie's only 5 minutes, but it's great. It's the best thing you've ever seen, but it's only 5 minutes long. I would not have spent that money. So to not even get to see an entire movie, to walk out of it 5 minutes into it and spend that kind of money, it irritated me pretty bad. But I got settled pretty quickly. It's only money. I do need to be more conscientious about how I spend my money, because I don't have money to throw around. I have 2 kids. I have a wife. We sometimes have to float a bill. We're not rich, like I said. I need to pay more attention to that. I need to budget, and I need to not spend frivolously. And I learned a lesson, and I feel bad about it. But in the end, instead of beating myself up over it, I need to realize it was just money. Money comes, money goes. And although I would not have paid that kind of money for a movie that I knew was only going to be 5 minutes long, I do think it was worth the lesson. It's happened a couple of times now when I've been on these trips and I really just want to go see something and there's nothing out. It's just that one of those times of the year where for me there's nothing out. I've seen everything I wanted to see. I'm not a fan of paying money or that kind of money to go see something twice. So it's got to be out of this world good for me to go see it twice. I think I went to see this latest installment of the Jurassic Park movie twice. I really liked it. But even superhero movies, which I really love, I'll go see twice. But sometimes I think I went to see the Avengers a couple of times and the Avengers 2 a couple of times. It really needs to be out of this world for me to go see it twice. But c'est la vie. It's only money, and I do know that I need to pay attention. But it's come, it's gone, and living in the past will do nothing but bring you down unless the past you're living in is happy and you're trying to relive those memories, and that's okay. But negative stuff, just let it go. It's water under the bridge, and it's only money. And then the last thing I want to talk about in this episode, stop being an anal crevice. I know that probably sounds more rude than a-hole, but I'm trying to keep this show PG. And I apologize if you're somebody listening and you've got a kid. I apologize, but you probably need to hear this. I know I need to hear this because there are times when that's the way to describe me. Although I'm hoping to goodness it's not too much. Today I've run into several people. It's like there's something in the air, and I've looked and I don't think the moon's full. I don't see any stars. It's overcast, so I don't know if it's a full moon or not, but it's been several different ways and several different situations. I'll just give you some examples. And this morning I go through the drive-thru at a big fast food restaurant that we all know and we all spend too much money for very bad for you food. And I went through there and I got a biscuit and a coffee. And they told me to pull up to the first window to pay. Now, I had something else on my mind. I don't know what it was, but I heard them say the first window, but I didn't really hear them. It didn't register. Nevertheless, I stopped at the first window. You know how it is in that situation where you can't remember if they told you to pull up to the first or the second window, and you pull up to the first window and it looks like they don't even use that window, so you go ahead and pull up. That's what I did, but not without waiting for about a minute, because there was a line of cars and there were people in front of me. So I sat at that window for about a minute and nobody came. Nothing. So I pulled on up. And the girl comes through and goes to hand me something. And I said, "That's not my order. I just ordered the biscuit and the coffee." And she said, she looked at it and she looked at me and then just about barked at me, almost yelled at me. "You were supposed to pay at the first window." And I smiled and calmly said, "I waited there for a minute. Nobody came." She rolled her eyes at me, huffed, walked back somewhere in the catacombs of the restaurant, then came back with my order and all but threw it at me. Now, I'm not a complainer. I don't like to be bullied, and I won't stand up for it. I will go to management if somebody's being out of line, but I was in a hurry. I needed to get my day started, so I just smiled, took my change, told her to have a nice day, and I left. But then later on, pulling up not too long ago from when I started recording this episode, on the other side of Atlanta in Kennesaw, Georgia, I was wanting a Philly Connection Philly steak for my supper. So I pulled in, and it was dark. The lights weren't... There were a few lights on in the parking lot of the Philly Connection, but not all of them. So it was fairly dark in the parking lot. But I pull up beside a lady, and I'm getting out of my car, and I'm being careful not to open my door on her car so that I don't hit it. And I noticed the lady was in the car, and she looked at me, and our eyes met. This was an older lady. Our eyes met, and I smiled and nodded at her as if to say, "Good evening, ma'am. Wonderful evening, isn't it? How are you? Nice to see you. Hope your day is going wonderful." All of that implied in my smile and my nod. She looked at me like, "Who do you think you are to even look my direction?" She snarled at me, cocked an eyebrow, popped her head a little bit like, "Who do you think you are?" and then turned away. Didn't acknowledge with even a nod or a smile or a wave. I mean, complete rudity. It's a good thing that I'd had a good day today, because although I would not have said anything to the lady, as I said, I'm not the type of person who likes to start a fight. I can return a not so nice look if I'm given one, but that's about it. I wasn't going to start anything with her, but what I will do a lot of times in a situation like that is get just angry at the whole situation, angry at the world for the way mankind has become to one another, and let it ruin my night. I didn't this time, and it's a good thing. But I did start thinking as I rode down the road with steak grease dripping down my chin and trying not to have a wreck while I figured out a way to manhandle this huge Philly steak that was delicious, by the way. What have we come to? Why can't we at least smile at each other? Why must people automatically... I don't know. I've just noticed it a lot lately. Here in the South, I'm from the South, I'm from Georgia, wherever you're listening to this. If you're not in the South, it may surprise you to ride down our roads if you're ever down this way. And if you ride through a neighborhood and someone's outside, odds are they're going to wave their hand at you. They're going to just raise their hand and smile and wave, or at least give you the nod. It's just what we do. It's Southern hospitality. We say hello. But as you get more toward the metropolitan areas like Atlanta and stuff, you start to notice that's not as much the case. And I hate that. I don't understand why people have to have that kind of an attitude. Why not wave back? It might make your day better. Whatever's going on in your life that makes you feel ugly, if someone smiles and waves at you or nods, smile and nod back. I guarantee it's going to make you feel better, and it's going to make that person feel better. So stop being an anal crevice. Just stop it. You have the choice not to be. You can smile. You can laugh. You can make somebody's day brighter. And you may not want to, but it's good for you. You will help yourself by helping others. So don't do it. Stop being an anal crevice. That's the last time I'm going to say that. I'm glad you've been with me on this episode of Road Noise. I'm Michael Blackston. If you'd like to get in touch with me, here's the way you can do it. I have a hotline. It's 706-389-0401. That's 706-389-0401. And if you would, please listen at the end of this episode for a way to get in touch with us, not only by that hotline, but also via email. And if you would, please go to iTunes and give us a review if you feel so encouraged to do so. And spread the word about this podcast. If it's something that you just like listening to, I know we don't have a whole lot. I'm not going to be able to help you in every single episode to grow your business. I am a business owner, so I will have wisdom, I hope, from time to time about that type of thing. I am an artist, so maybe I'll be able to help you. But that's not what this show is about. This show is not a self-help thing. It's not an entrepreneurial podcast. It's not a tech podcast. It's not a review podcast for a TV show or movies or anything. This is my life journal. This is me living life 1 mile at a time. And if you like it, and you like being a part of my life, and you like riding along with me, and you think you know somebody else who might, the best way you can help me to grow my show is to share it with somebody. So find us on Facebook and share it. Or copy the link to our podcast. Send it however you can think. Just tell a friend about it. Word of mouth is a great way to do, because people will listen and will say, hey, if they like it, maybe it's something I can listen to. And that's the best way to help me grow Road Noise. And again, I appreciate you driving along with me, right beside me in the passenger seat as I commute life 1 mile at a time. I'm Michael Blackston. This is Road Noise, and we'll see you next time. If you would like to get in touch with me, there are several ways you can do it. You can do it via our hotline, like I said earlier, 706-389-0401. You can also email me at roadnoisepodcast@gmail.com. I have a Facebook page now. It's facebook.com/roadnoisepodcast. I'd love for you to go and like the page and tell us what you think there, or give us any of your ideas or feedback that way. You can always do that. You can also follow me on Twitter at EverythingArts. If you're an artist, I also have a Facebook group that I administrate called My Everything Arts. Just go to groups and look up My Everything Arts and ask to join if you are an artist, and I will have to approve you, but I'll be glad to do that if you are a legitimate person that would like to be a part of our group. And we're artists, and we like to share artsy things, whether it be live performance or visual arts or photography. We put it all on there, and right now it's mostly me that puts stuff, but I do have other people that put stuff on there from time to time. And in my idea of it, it's for artists to come together and be able to share ideas and give each other advice and critique and stuff like that. So I encourage you to go to My Everything Arts at Facebook as well. So those are the ways to get in touch with me if you would like to. I'm Mike Blackston. Thanks for sitting in the passenger seat with me as we learn to live life 1 mile at a time.